Good early afternoon. We are live. Got a full studio audience today. I thought everybody went home. No, everybody's here. Good. Well, I was hurrying to get a box of Kleenex when we started. We usually have a box that goes right here. It's not here today. Hey, Tammy Nance. Hey, Marcy Carlson Tyler. Hey, Shanda Danner. How are y'all doing? We got our Kleenex. Now I feel secure. So we have Kleenex nearby with a nose like this. You think about that kind of stuff. Ruth, good afternoon from Southwest Virginia. We've got a good show today. I'm pretty excited about it because of the topic. It's just an exciting, happy, joyful topic. We'll be talking about death in just a little bit. Anyway, Dave Huco, good afternoon. We're glad you're here. Martin Simmons, hey. And I'm glad you enjoyed the T.G. Shepherd interview that on the podcast just came out today. And we had, is it Elvis's birthday or Elvis's...
It was the 1956. Yeah, it was the first time he had a song hit the Billboard Top 10.
Oh, and what was it?
No, I forget.
Who knows? Matt Wilson. Hey, buddy. How are you doing? Yeah, so we had T.G. Shepherd on this week because it was the Elvis week. You'll have to watch it to find out why. But T.G. Shepherd met Elvis playing roller skating football when T.G. Shepherd was like 14 or 15 years old. So it's a pretty crazy story. Pam Harper Hauser, hey, finally caught a live one. I'm glad you're here with us live. I'm wearing my Orange Beach Lady Mako's shirt. Tonight is our second game of the year. You guys, of course, know the Orange Beach Lady Mako's. What? Where are you from? Don't give me a head shake. Wanda Parsons, hey, from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The Orange Beach Lady Mako's are our high school ladies softball team. And let me just tell you something. If you have ever been fascinated because you've been caught in the middle of a dynasty, people from Indiana now know what it's like to go through a season where you're just so much better than everybody. It's just unbelievable. And that's the first time Indiana has ever experienced that, right? I mean, this was the worst team in football for years. And yet they're going through a time now that we've been going through that for 5 years with these girls. They have been the state champions 5 years in a row. Our seniors were in the 7th grade when they won their first state championship. And was it last year? Year before last, they ended up number 1 in the nation, national champions. I mean, now think about this. There's 28,000 ladies high school teams in America. And Little Orange Beach, Alabama, 4A team, number 1 in the nation. Last year, we beat 17 7A teams. We had 46 games, and we ruled 32 of them. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And so this year, we've already played 1 game. I told a friend, I said, we got to find ourselves. After that game, I'm just not sure we're that good. He said, was it close? I said, kind of. It was 10-2. And he said, that's not close. I said, well, when you're used to beating people 14, 16, 18 to nothing, 10-2 seems close. But we're ranked by Rivals Sports, number 1 in the nation right now. Max Prep Sports ranks us number 2 in the nation, so we're going to go with the Rivals ranking. Of course. We had 4 seniors depart last year with college scholarships. Tonight, when our team takes the field, 5 of our seniors have already signed college scholarships. 2 of our juniors have already signed college scholarships. And we have a 10th grade pitcher who is like one of the top prospects in the nation, and she's getting letters from all over. And then we have a third baseman who's a 10th grader who's the number 1 prospect in the nation in the 10th grade. And then we've had our first bunch of seniors go to college. So we're watching Daga Wilson play at Auburn. She's playing as a freshman. She bunted home the winning score the other night. She had a 2-run double the other night. So watching Daga with Auburn and then watching KG Favors with South Carolina. So, but it's pretty amazing. I could talk to them for the rest of the hour if you'd like. Polly says I'm their biggest fan, and I am. She said, "You're like just a little girl fan of them." I kind of am. Aria Hine from Oregon. SB watching us from home. SB's kind of under the weather. We're glad you're with us, though. Janice Queen from Overcast, North Carolina. Will catch you on replay when your husband wakes up from his nap. Just wake him up right now. So, John and Pam, we wish you were still here. All right, we're ready to get started? Let's get started. First of all, Polly and I got, on the weekend, sometime we'll find ourselves kind of in the kitchen, sitting area, and she'll have something on TV besides cooking, and I'll look at it, and we just kind of stand and watch for a minute, and then we kind of get interested, and we kind of slowly sit down, and, it's the weekend, there's not much to do, and so we've been hooked on a couple of old movies in the past few months. But we got hooked on one the other day, and when it was over, I'm used to watching a movie or watching a TV show and really having to kind of calm myself down in my mind because things have changed so much culturally. It's just stuff you just wish you didn't have to watch, or stuff that, well, no, if there's stuff I wish I didn't have to watch, I ain't got to watch nothing. I get caught watching stuff, and then it'll make this turn into something I don't believe or something I don't like or something that's untrue. And then I have to talk to myself. I have to get up, I have to leave, I change the channels, I do, keep watching it and talk to myself. But it's just like the other night. Did you notice when we were all out here with Jonathan, the Survivor thing? The first episode of Survivor for the season this year was just this past Wednesday. And so one of our friends, a contributor with Wisdom Harbor, is one of the contestants in Survivor this year. And so we held a watch party down here at the port of the wharf with the monster screen and the big grass, lawn out there. There were like 500 people that showed up to watch. And so we're watching this thing, but there's commercials, right? And so I forget what the commercial was for, but it was a commercial for some movie. And it was so gruesome. I was like, Polly and I were both like, what are they showing this on here? There's kids watching this. And the commercial was so horrible. But I remember taking Austin one time and Austin's 26, and I took him to Finding Nemo. Just me and Austin, right over here. And he's like 6 years old or something. And the preview, the trailer for an upcoming movie, I never will forget. I didn't know what it was then. It turns out it was Pirates of the Caribbean. And they showed this guy's face melting like it did on, remember the Indiana Jones movie? Remember the Nazi's face? They showed that on a trailer. I got my 6-year-old here. He was terrified. I was so mad. You know, it's like you're taken to a dang cartoon movie about a fish, and you got to see this. And, well, that's a lot of talking just to tell you what I saw in this movie. But the movie, they were fighting this almost unbeatable foe. It just seemed like an unbeatable foe. These people could not beat the enemy. And toward the end, there's an exchange between the actors, and here's what they say. One of them says, "What are we going to do?" And then the other one says, "There's nothing more we can do. We need a miracle." And the other one says, "Yes, we need divine intervention." Now, those words were in a major motion picture, right? They're spoken by Dr. Clayton Forrester, who's played by Gene Barry, in a 1953 film, and this is after the military's weapons prove useless against a particular war machine. And so that moment marks the emotional shift in the whole movie, and it acknowledges that science, government, and military power have failed, and humanity's only remaining hope lies beyond itself. You know what the movie was? War of the Worlds, 1953. And listen to what the final, and I mean, I've known about this and read the book, and but I don't really remember much about it. But the War of the Worlds thing, when we all know about the radio show that panicked everybody, but this is the movie of the book, okay, with the Martians invading and all like that. And so I was just amazed at how they ended the movie. This is obviously a secular movie, but it's 1953. Nobody could beat these Martians. And finally, toward the end of the movie, after they asked for divine intervention, one's shooting lasers, and finally just kind of goes into a building. And then you kind of see scenes all over the world. These ships are just going down. And so here's what the narration says at the end. Finally, almost all within a single hour, every enemy combatant died. The Martians had no resistance to the bacteria in our atmosphere, a presence to which we have long since become immune. After all that man could do had failed, the Martians were destroyed and humanity was saved by the smallest thing which God, in his wisdom, had put upon this earth. I just think that's pretty amazing. So, okay. We've talked about Martians. We've talked about softball. Ready to talk about death? Here we go. It's just ramping up into a more exciting, more joyful episode of the Blue Plate Special than you could ever imagine. Softball to Martians to death. Now, I am particularly fascinated by bizarre deaths. So history is usually filled with battles and inspiring speeches, but sometimes the exit from this world turns out to be just plain weird. We all hope to go peacefully in our sleep, but I've made a list of some unfortunate people who stumbled onto some of the craziest ways to die you could ever imagine. So let's look at some of the most unconventional ways people have shuffled off this mortal coil. I've got number one. Chrysippus of Sully is a Greek philosopher. He died from laughter after watching a donkey eat some of his fermented figs. He found the sight so hilarious that he told a joke about giving the animal some wine to wash them down, which triggered an uncontrollable fit. He laughed so hard that his body eventually gave out, making him literally a victim of his own sense of humor. So it wasn't just the donkey getting drunk on the figs. That was funny to him. But what was really funny to him was his joke he made about giving the donkey wine to wash it down. For some reason, have you ever told a joke or made a comment and everybody just kind of looked at you, and you still thought, I still think it's funny. I still think it's funny. Well, evidently he really thought it was funny. I don't know anybody else died laughing, but he did. Hans Stunninger had the Guinness Book of World Record beard. I mean, which sounds like a point of pride, but it ended up being a fatal trip hazard. It was an Austrian mayor, and he usually kept his 5-foot-long beard, a 5-foot-long beard, rolled up in a pouch, but he forgot to tuck away during a town fire, and he tripped over his own whiskers while he was running down some stairs and broke his neck. See, there's a reason Zig Ziglar said you shouldn't have beards. I think that was probably it. Aeschylus, the famous Greek playwright, met a soaring end. An eagle dropped a turtle on his bald head. Can you imagine? So the eagle is wanting to crack open his dinner, and he sees what he thinks is a rock and makes a perfect shot on this guy's bald head and kills him. I mean, he just wanted to crack the shell open for a snack. It was the wrong place at the wrong time. That's all you can say. All right, how about Qin Shi Huang? The first emperor of China was obsessed with finding the secret to eternal life. But his quest led him to an early grave. He consumed pills containing mercury because his doctors believed the liquid metal would grant him immortality. Instead of living forever, he poisoned his system and cut his reign significantly short. You know, you always wonder, when you see something like a raw oyster, who was the first person to eat that? Who said, crack open that rock and let's see if we can eat what's inside? Or milk. Who was the first person to drink milk? Somebody said, see that growth hanging under that cow? You squeeze it, I'll drink what comes out. So, how does anybody come up with these first things? And we were looking at this bark off a toothache tree, which is something the Indians use to numb a toothache. And so you can cut this bark off this tree, put it in there. And I was with a friend recently, and we were doing that, and he said, man, how does somebody know that? Well, this is how they know. Mercury, it'll make you live forever. No, it won't. Let's don't do that again. That was just kind of one and done. It'll make you live forever. No, it won't. And they knew. So I guess you just keep giving somebody something until they die. Here, chew this, taste this, touch this, watch this. Really? I guess that's how. All right, how about Tycho Brahe? Etiquette can be a real danger, as this famous Danish astronomer discovered during a royal banquet. In 1601, this guy felt it was too rude to leave the table to use the restroom before the host stood up. So he sat through the meal and his bladder burst. Of course, when you have a bursted bladder in 1601, I guess there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But the resulting infection was fatal, proving that following social rules isn't always worth the physical cost. let me just say for my studio audience that if anybody needs to go to the bathroom while you're here, right around the corner, right there, just so you know. You don't want any burst bladders and dead people hanging around here. Francis Bacon. He was a brilliant scientist, and his curiosity about food preservation led to a case of pneumonia. He decided to test, this is Francis Bacon, decided to test to see if snow could keep a chicken fresh. So he hopped out of his carriage to stuff a bird full of frozen slush, and the cold air was too much for his lungs, and he passed away after completing his icy experiment. I guess he stayed out and watched to see if it would freeze or rot or something. I mean, you wouldn't think just hopping out of your carriage would make you get pneumonia, but maybe, maybe he was probably getting pneumonia and they just needed something to blame it on. Because back in those days, who knows? All right, how about Jean-Baptiste Lully? This guy was a French composer. So enthusiastic about conducting his music that he accidentally stabbed his own foot with his conducting staff. He refused to have the injured toe amputated because he wanted to keep dancing. I'm a dancer. But that toe allowed gangrene to spread through his leg. So his dedication to dancing and his vanity combined to create a lethal situation. So he died because he was a dancer. Clement Vallandigham. This one is just amazing. This is a lawyer trying to prove that a victim could have accidentally fired on themselves, and he ended up being far too successful at his demonstration. He used what he thought was an unloaded pistol to show the jury how the incident might have happened accidentally, but the prop was actually loaded. He won the case for his client posthumously because the jury couldn't argue with such a vivid recreation. He actually shot himself while he was trying to show how it could have been an accident. Good grief. How about Gary Hoy? As a Toronto lawyer, wanted to prove to a group of students that the glass in his office building was unbreakable. He threw himself against the window, and while the glass did not shatter, the entire frame popped out of the wall. He fell 24 stories to the ground, having successfully proven the strength of the glass, but failing to account for the window's mounting. He was an attorney, though, so. Adolf Fredrik, the King of Sweden, the particularly massive feast in 1771 did him in. He consumed a meal consisting of lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, and smoked herring, followed by 14 servings of his favorite dessert soaked in hot milk. His digestive system could not handle the sheer volume of food, and he died. Now, if you die after eating 14 helpings of banana pudding, that's going the right way, at least. If you gotta die after 14 banana puddings, that would do it. All right, how about this one? George II of Great Britain. Going to the bathroom for this king turned into his final act on a Saturday morning. He suffered a thoracic aortic dissection while on the toilet. His attendants found him on the floor, marking the end of a long reign in a very private setting. Of course, as you fans of popular music might know. Well, let me try this again. Let me do that. Because this is just too good. All right, here we go. George II of Great Britain. Going to the bathroom for this king turned into his final act on a Saturday morning. He suffered a thoracic aortic dissection while on the toilet. His attendants found him on the floor, marking the end of a long reign in a very private setting. Of course, as you fans of popular music might note, George II was really the first. He was the first king to die on a toilet. You're getting it. You're getting it. You got it. Okay. All right. Yep. Yeah, that's one of those things. I could probably laugh to death on that. I think that's funnier than you do. How about this one? Jim Fixx, the man who wrote the best-selling book on the health benefits of jogging, unfortunately suffered a fatal heart attack while out for a run. It's a bit of dark irony that the face of the 1970s fitness revolution died doing the very activity he promoted. But it's not just the father of running. Remember the Atkins diet? Low carb, high fat, protein heavy. Dr. Atkins, creator of the diet, died of a heart attack. How about the Beverly Hills diet? It was popular in the 80s. It forbid the combination of fruits. Judy Mazel was the creator of that one. She died from a vascular disease, narrowing of the arteries. I know you remember the Pritikin diet, a strict low cholesterol, low fat program based on whole grains, nuts, and fruits. Nathan Pritikin developed leukemia, then mental health issues, then committed suicide. What about Fit for Life? Fit for Life was a big one. It popularized not eating proteins and carbohydrates together along with a high fruit intake. Fit for Life was Marilyn Diamond, who died of dementia. So for the record, the father of running, dead. Atkins diet, dead. Beverly Hills diet lady, dead. Nathan Pritikin, dead. And the woman who sold 12 million copies of Fit for Life, dead. But you know who's still alive? Chubby Checker, Jelly Roll, and me. That's who we still got. How about Thomas Midgley Jr.? After contracting polio, this inventor created this elaborate system of ropes and pulleys to help him get out of bed without assistance. On November 2nd, 1944, he became entangled in the various cords of his own device and was accidentally strangled by the machine. That was a tragic twist. You and me thought that was funny. Okay. Draco the Lawgiver was an Athenian statesman and so popular that his fans smothered him to death with a display of affection. He was at a theater and people threw so many hats, shirts, and coats and cloaks onto him that he suffocated under the weight of the gifts. Gives a whole new meaning to the term loved to death by the public, doesn't it? How about Robert Williams? January 25, 1979. Robert Williams was a Ford assembly line worker and became the first person in history to be killed by a robot. A 1-ton mechanical arm struck him in the head while he was trying to retrieve parts from a storage rack. The machine just kept doing its job because it didn't have the sensors to know a human was in its path. I mean, you know, there are things that you brag about your family. You know, my granddaddy was in the Civil War. You know, my granddaddy worked at the first McDonald's ever. You know, I don't know. My granddaddy was a Methodist church circuit rider. I mean, there's always things, but somebody's out there going, my granddaddy's the first person ever killed by a robot. It just seems kind of weird. Alexander the First of Greece Now, this was not Alexander the Great. This was just Alexander the First. This was the first Alexander. I don't know how many Alexanders you had to go through to get to the Great, but this was just the first. Okay, so a casual walk in the park turned deadly for this king when his German Shepherd got into a fight with a domestic monkey. And so when Alexander stepped in to break up the scuffle, another monkey bit him on the leg. The wound became severely infected, and he died of sepsis a few weeks after the seemingly minor encounter. And you got a German Shepherd and you got a monkey. Which one are you going to expect to kill you? You know, it's like, golly. How about Marcus Linnæus Crassus? Incredibly wealthy Roman general was captured by the Parthians, who decided to execute him in a way that mocked his greed. This guy was so greedy, and when they captured him, they poured molten gold down his throat. You want the gold? Drink it up. Yo. It was a brutal and literal way to ensure he finally got all the wealth he could ever want. Jerome Irving Rodale is a major proponent of odd eating habits. This man had, now this one, you can actually see this on YouTube. So this guy is a proponent of odd eating habits, and he had just offered Dick Cavett. You remember Dick Cavett, talk show host, late night? I think he might have been up against Carson, but I think he was on another network after Carson. But anyway, this guy, proponent of weird eating habits, had just offered host Dick Cavett his famous asparagus boiled in urine. Cavett turned it down. And he said, "I'm only 72 now, but with my dietary habits, I will definitely live to be 100. Immediately after making that statement, he laid his chin on his chest and died. Right there on the set during the interview. You can go on YouTube and put Dick Cavett, dead guy. I mean, you can see it. Because Dick Cavett and I think it was Pete Hamill, who's an instrumentalist, I think he's a jazz trumpeter, but the guy's in between them, and they kind of go, hey, and it ain't happening. How about this one? Attila the Hun. This is a fierce warrior, terrified the Roman Empire, didn't fall on the battlefield, but he died at his own wedding feast. He suffered this massive nosebleed after a night of heavy drinking, and he choked while he was lying unconscious. Attila the Hun. Well, that's a guy who ruined that name forever, didn't he? I mean, by being Attila. I mean, because there were probably, back in the day, a lot of little Attilas. Probably. I mean, there's Attila Jones, Attila Robinson, Attila Smith. There were probably tons of Attilas, but then they all grew up. And, at some point somebody was saying, I saw Attila the other day, and then somebody said, what? Attila who? Attila the Hun. And people went, oh. And I think after there was an Attila the Hun, I don't think there was any more Attilas. I mean, if you can find a phone book, look in one today. See if you can find a first name Attila. I don't think it's there. I think Attila, I think there are probably some Hitlers in phone books. I think you probably go in Europe and you can find Hitler families, but you bet they ain't naming no little kids Adolf. That one's gone forever. That one's gone. Bobby Leach This one is just ridiculous. Bobby Leach went over Niagara Falls in a barrel and survived. You know how he died? He slipped on an orange peel and got an infection from the injury. He lived going over Niagara Falls and he died slipping on an orange peel. All right, here's your last one. You ready? Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, age 35, started composing at age 5 and went on to produce over 600 works, symphonies, operas, concertos, sonatas, in a career that burned brilliantly and briefly. He died in Vienna in 1791, midway through composing his most haunting music, Requiem. The mystery surrounding his death and the fact that he was buried in an unmarked grave only deepened his legend as one of classical music's greatest tragic figures. Mozart spent his entire life composing. And today, several hundred years later, he is still decomposing. Now, come on, if you're not going to laugh at that. That's all we have today. We had softball. What was the thing right before death? Oh, softball, War of the Worlds, Martians, and death. Well, it was a very uplifting show. The Lady Makos are playing in Fairhope tonight at 7 o'clock. If anybody wants to meet me there. So, and then they're in Spanish Fort Thursday night. Our first home game is not for another week or so. We have a hard time getting people to play us, so we'll travel to play. I'm not kidding. We have a hard time getting people to play us. So, anyway, that's it for today. We're glad you're here. We appreciate you being with us. And we'll see you Thursday. We'll see you Thursday.